The Starbreaker drifted through space like a wounded animal, its hull cracked in bleeding atmosphere through a dozen small holes. Sparks flew from broken control panels while warning lights painted the bridge in angry red colors. Commander Vex gripped his command chair as another system failed, sending tremors through the massive warship. "Sir, we're losing power to the main engines," reported his weapons officer, her voice tight with worry. "Life support is down to 60%. We need repairs now." Vex stared at the star map floating before him. 3 different repair stations had already turned him away. The mechanists at Station Omega had scanned his ship for less than 5 minutes before declaring it a total loss. The crystal beings at the Centaurian facility had been more polite but equally final in their judgment. Even the famous Rigel shipyards, known for taking on impossible jobs, had shaken their heads and suggested he scrap the vessel for parts. "There is one more option, sir," his navigator said quietly. "The human sector. Station Alpha 7 has a repair facility." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about humans. They were the newest members of the Galactic Alliance, a species that had barely mastered interstellar travel when the rest of the galaxy had been exploring space for thousands of years. Their technology was primitive compared to most civilizations. Their ships were crude metal boxes held together with welds and hope. Most aliens viewed them as amusing curiosities rather than serious competitors. Humans? Vex's tactical officer laughed. "Sir, with respect, what could they possibly do that the mechanoids couldn't? They don't even have proper quantum repair matrices." Vex looked at his dying ship. The lights flickered again, and he could hear the hull groaning under stress. They had maybe 6 hours before complete system failure. The nearest proper repair facility was 2 days away, assuming they could even make it that far. "Set course for the human station," he ordered. Station Alpha 7 hung in space like a metal mushroom, all function and no style. It was built from recycled ship parts and industrial modules, painted in faded colors that had seen better decades. Next to the gleaming spires of Centaurian stations, or the perfect geometric shapes of mechanoid facilities, it looked like something a child might build from scrap metal. The docking bay was cramped and smelled of oil and hot metal. As Vex stepped off his shuttle, he noticed that everything seemed to be held together with visible bolts and welds. Pipes ran along the walls without any attempt to hide them behind panels. The floor was solid metal grating that clanked under his feet. A human approached him, wiping greasy hands on a cloth. He was average height for his species, with gray hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent squinting at broken machinery. He wore simple work clothes that had seen countless repair jobs. "You must be Commander Vex," the human said, extending his hand. "I'm Tom, Chief Engineer here. Heard you've got some trouble with your ship." Vex hesitated before shaking the offered hand. The human's grip was firm and warm, his hands rough with calluses from manual work. Most alien repair facilities were run by AI systems or remote operators. This direct, personal approach felt strange. "My ship has suffered extensive damage," Vex explained. "Multiple systems failures, hull breaches, power distribution problems. 3 major facilities have declared it beyond repair." Tom nodded and pulled out a small device that looked nothing like the sophisticated scanners Vex was used to. It was basically a metal tube with some lights on it. "Let's have a look," Tom said. They walked through the station corridors to where the Starbreaker was docked. Vex watched Tom's face as the human saw his ship for the first time. The warship was massive, nearly a kilometer long, with weapon arrays and shield generators that represented the peak of his species' military technology. But right now it looked like a broken toy, listing to one side with burn marks across its hull. Tom whistled low. "She's a beauty, even banged up like this. What happened?" "Pirate attack. We were outnumbered 3-1. We won, but barely." Tom walked around the ship, running his hands along the damaged hull plating. He didn't use any instruments, just his eyes and fingers. Occasionally he would stop and press his ear against the metal, listening to something only he could hear. The other facilities said the structural damage was too severe, Vex explained. The frame is twisted, the power core is unstable, and half the systems are completely fried. Tom said, crawling under a damaged section to examine it from below. His voice was muffled but clear. The mechanoids tell you that? Yes, they said the quantum matrix was compromised beyond repair. Tom emerged from under the ship, his work clothes now covered in space dust and lubricant stains. Quantum matrix, huh? Fancy words for a power distribution system, he grinned. Mind if I take a look inside? For the next 3 hours, Tom crawled through the starbreaker like he owned it. He squeezed into maintenance shafts that the previous inspectors had deemed too dangerous to enter. He pulled panels off walls and stuck his head into spaces that hadn't been designed for access. All the while, he carried nothing more than a simple toolbox and that basic scanning device. Vex followed him, growing more confused by the minute. Tom would stop at seemingly random locations, touch a wall or pipe, and make notes on an actual paper notebook. He tasted coolant leaking from a damaged line and nodded as if it told him something important. When they reached the engine room, he sat on the floor next to the massive power core and simply listened to it hum. Your main problem isn't what they told you, Tom finally said, standing up and brushing dust off his knees. Yeah, you've got hull damage and some fried circuits, but that's not why she's dying. What do you mean? Tom pointed to a series of pipes running along the ceiling. See those conduits? They're carrying power to your life support systems. But they're running too hot because the cooling system got knocked out of alignment during the fight. The computer keeps trying to compensate by rerouting power, but it's creating feedback loops that are burning out other systems. Vex stared at the pipes. They looked fine to him. The diagnostics showed no problems with the cooling system. That's because the cooling system itself is working perfectly. It's just pointed in the wrong direction by about 15 degrees. The quantum scanners your mechanoid friends used probably never even noticed because they were looking for broken parts, not misaligned ones. Tom opened his notebook and showed Vex a rough sketch of the ship's systems. It looked like something a child might draw, but it showed connections and relationships that the fancy computer models had missed. Here's what we're going to do, Tom said. First, we realign your cooling system. That'll stop the power fluctuations. Then we patch the hull breaches with some temporary plates while we fabricate proper replacements. The structural damage looks worse than it is because the metal is bent, not broken. We can straighten most of it with some heat and pressure. How long will this take? Tom scratched his chin, thinking. Give me 4 days, maybe 5. Should be better than new when we're done. Vex felt something he hadn't experienced in weeks: hope. The next morning, Vex arrived at the repair bay to find chaos. At least that's what it looked like to his trained military eye. Humans crawled all over his ship like insects, cutting into hull plates with bright torches while others hauled strange pieces of equipment on wheeled carts. The noise was incredible. Hammering, welding, shouting, and the hiss of plasma cutters filled the air with a symphony of industrial sounds. Tom stood in the middle of it all, apparently calm while directing the madness around him. He spotted Vex and walked over, a cup of steaming liquid in his hand. Morning, Commander. Coffee? Tom offered a second cup. Vex took the drink cautiously. He had heard about human coffee but never tried it. The bitter taste made him wince, but the warmth was oddly comforting. This seems very different from other repair operations I've seen, Vex said, watching a human woman disappear completely inside an access panel that looked too small for any living being. Yeah, we don't do things like most folks, Tom agreed. See, the mechanoids would have your ship in a sterile bay with robot arms doing everything by computer program. Very clean, very precise, very expensive. Takes them 2 weeks to do what we can do in 4 days. A young human man approached them, his arms covered in some kind of electronic components. Tom, we've got a problem with the power coupling on Deck 7. The Regellian connectors don't fit the Centaurian power feeds. Show me, Tom said, and they walked over to where several humans stood around an open panel, scratching their heads. Vex followed, curious. Inside the panel was a tangle of cables and connections that looked like electronic spaghetti. 2 thick power cables ended in completely different types of plugs, neither of which fit the socket they were supposed to connect. See, this is what happens when you get repairs done all over the galaxy, Tom explained to Vex. Every species uses different standards. The Regellians like these twist-lock connectors, but the Centaurians prefer magnetic seals. Your ships got bits from everywhere, and none of it talks to each other properly. So what do? Vex asked. We improvise, said the woman, who had been working inside the access panel. Her name was Kate, and she had streaks of grease in her hair. Look, I can't make a Regellian plug fit a Centaurian socket, but I can make something that fits both. She pulled out a device that looked like it had been built from spare parts. It was clearly handmade, with visible solder joints and mismatched components. But when she connected it between the incompatible systems, lights flickered on and power flowed smoothly. You made that? Vex asked, amazed. About an hour ago, Kate said with a shrug. Had to strip parts from 3 different connectors and jury-rigged the voltage converter, but it works. Is it safe? Safer than the original setup, Kate replied. See, the Centaurian system was trying to force too much power through connections that couldn't handle it. This adapter regulates the flow and prevents overload. Your ship will actually run better than before. As they moved through the ship, Vex saw more examples of human creativity. In the engine room, a man named Bill was rebuilding the cooling system alignment mechanism using parts that clearly came from different manufacturers. The original mechanoid components were precision-engineered pieces that fit together like puzzle pieces. Bill's replacement looked rough and homemade, but when he tested it, the alignment was perfect to within fractions of degrees. How did you know that would work? Vex asked. Experience, Bill said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Been fixing cooling systems for 20 years. Doesn't matter if it's on a human cargo hauler or an alien warship. Heat is heat, and metal is metal. The physics don't change. In the weapons bay, Vex found humans doing something that should have been impossible. His ship's main gun had been damaged when its focusing crystal cracked during the battle. The weapon was useless without that crystal. And replacement parts cost more than some people made in a lifetime. A human engineer named Dave was carefully installing something that definitely wasn't a focusing crystal. It looked like a collection of smaller crystals arranged in a complex pattern and held together with metal framework. What is that? Vex demanded. Focusing array, Dave said proudly. Couldn't get a replacement crystal in your size, but I had a bunch of smaller ones from different ships. Figured out how to arrange them so they work together like one big crystal. That's impossible. The resonance frequencies won't match. Dave grinned and activated the weapon system. Energy flowed through his improvised focusing array smoothly, and the targeting system showed full power and perfect beam coherence. Turns out it works even better than the original, Dave said. If one small crystal fails, the others compensate. More reliable than a single point of failure. Everywhere Vex looked, humans were doing things that shouldn't work but did. They welded hull patches using metal from completely different ship classes, creating repairs that were stronger than the original hull. They bypassed burned-out computer systems by running cables through maintenance shafts and connecting backup processors that had never been designed to work together. The most amazing thing was how they communicated. At mechanoid facilities, every step was planned in advance by computer models. Workers followed precise instructions without deviation. Here, humans constantly talked to each other, sharing ideas and solutions. When one person encountered a problem, others would gather around to offer suggestions. "Hey, Kate," Bill called out from across the engine room. "I'm getting weird readings on the gravity generator. Think it might be connected to the hull stress you were working on." Kate climbed down from where she was installing new power conduits. "Let me see." She looked at his readings and nodded. "Yeah, the microfractures are throwing off the gravity field calculations. But instead of replacing the generator, what if we recalibrate it to account for the hull flex?" "That could work," said Dave, joining the conversation. "I've got some flexible mounting brackets that might help distribute the stress more evenly." Within minutes, they had developed a solution that none of them could have created alone. They turned a problem into an improvement, making the gravity system more resilient to damage. "This is remarkable," Vex said to Tom. "Your people work together like a single organism." "We've learned that two heads are better than one," Tom replied. "When you're dealing with the unknown, it helps to have different perspectives. The mechanoids are great at following procedures, but they don't adapt well when something doesn't match their programming. And you do? We have to. Human ships break down constantly because our technology isn't as advanced as everyone else's. We've gotten good at making things work with whatever we have available. When you can't afford new parts, you learn to be creative with old ones." As the day wore on, Vex began to understand that he was witnessing something special. These humans weren't just fixing his ship, they were improving it. Every repair made the system more robust, more adaptable, more reliable than the original design. They were taking the best ideas from dozens of different alien technologies and combining them in ways no one had ever attempted. By evening, the Starbreaker hummed with quiet efficiency. Systems that had been failing for months now ran smoothly. The ship felt solid and responsive in a way it never had before, even when it was new. 3 days later, Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the Starbreaker and could hardly believe what he was experiencing. Every system responded instantly to his commands. The engines produced more power than they ever had before. The weapons charged faster and aimed more accurately. Even the artificial gravity felt more stable under his feet. "All systems showing green across the board, sir," his weapons officer reported with amazement in her voice. "Actually, everything is performing above original specifications." "How is that possible?" Vex muttered, running his hand over a control panel that had been replaced with human-made components. The surface was rougher than the original, clearly handcrafted rather than manufactured, but it worked perfectly. Tom appeared on the bridge, carrying his ever-present cup of coffee and a tablet covered in handwritten notes, ready for final inspection. "Commander?" They walked through the ship together, Tom pointing out the changes his team had made. The hull repairs were invisible from the inside, but Tom explained how they had reinforced the entire structure using a web of support beams made from recycled materials. "Your ship was built for looks as much as function," Tom said. "Beautiful design, but not very practical. We kept all the important bits and just made them work better together." In the engine room, Vex stared at modifications that should have voided every warranty and violated a dozen safety regulations. Human-made components were integrated seamlessly with alien technology, creating hybrid systems that somehow worked better than pure designs. "Won't this cause problems when I need future repairs?" Vex asked. "Nope," Tom replied confidently. "Everything we did is documented. Any decent engineer can maintain it, and if they can't figure it out, they can call us. We've got remote diagnostic capabilities now." When they returned to the docking bay, Vex found his crew gathered around the ship, talking excitedly among themselves. Word had already spread through the station's communication networks about the remarkable repair job. Other ship crews had come to see the results for themselves. "Commander Vex," called a familiar voice. He turned to see Captain Nova of the Trade Federation approaching with several other alien officers he didn't recognize. "We heard about your ship. Is it true that the humans fixed damage that 3 major facilities couldn't handle?" "More than fixed," Vex replied proudly. "The Starbreaker is now better than it ever was when it left the shipyard." Nova exchanged glances with her companions. "We have ships that need repair work. The mechanoid facility on Rigel Prime quoted us 6 months and a fortune in credits for hull modifications. Think the humans might be interested in taking a look?" Before Vex could answer, Tom stepped forward. "Always happy to look at a challenge. What kind of modifications are you thinking about?" "We need to convert 3 cargo haulers for specialized transport," Nova explained. "The cargo bays need to be reconfigured for liquid storage, and we need better radiation shielding for hauling. Medical isotopes." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds doable. When can you bring them in?" "You mean you'll take the job?" Nova looked surprised. "Without even seeing detailed specifications or running computer simulations?" "I'll need to look at the ships first." "Of course," Tom said. "But cargo bay modifications are pretty straightforward. The radiation shielding might be more interesting. We'll figure something out." Within hours of the Starbreaker's departure, 3 more ships arrived at Station Alpha 7. Word was spreading through the galactic communication networks faster than anyone had expected. Vex found himself fielding calls from commanders across the galaxy, all wanting to know if the stories about human repair capabilities were true. The humans fixed systems that had been broken for years, he told Admiral Rex of the Titan Empire during a subspace call. "They didn't just repair the damage from the pirate attack. They found problems I didn't even know existed and solved them." "That's hard to believe," Rex replied skeptically. "My flagship has been having power distribution issues for months. The best engineers in the galaxy have looked at it." "Are you telling me some primitive humans could succeed where they failed?" "I'm telling you that these humans think differently," Vex said. "They don't follow the same rules everyone else does. They look at problems from angles nobody else considers." Rex was quiet for a moment. "My ship is due for maintenance next month. Maybe I'll swing by this human station and see for myself." The story spread from ship to ship, captain to captain, fleet to fleet. Within weeks, alien commanders were changing their patrol routes just to pass through the human sector. Station Alpha 7, which had been a minor outpost on the edge of known space, suddenly found itself hosting some of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Tom and his team took it all in stride. They treated each new challenge as an interesting puzzle to solve. When Admiral Rex's flagship arrived with its mysterious power problems, they discovered that incompatible software updates from different stations had created conflicts in the ship's central computer. Instead of wiping everything and starting over, Kate wrote custom code that made all the conflicting programs work together harmoniously. "Remarkable," Rex said as his ship's systems operated smoother than they had in years. "How did you know to look at the software integration?" "Process of elimination," Kate replied simply. "Hardware was fine, so it had to be software. Different alien species program things differently, so when you mix them together, sometimes they fight." When Captain Morris of the Deep Space Explorer Corps brought in his research vessel, the humans solved a problem that had baffled scientists for decades. The ship's sensitive instruments kept giving false readings during hyperspace travel. Previous repair attempts had focused on shielding the instruments from hyperspace radiation. Dave took a different approach. Instead of trying to block the radiation, he modified the instruments to use it as a calibration reference. The false readings disappeared, and the instruments actually became more accurate than before. "You turned a bug into a feature," Morris said with admiration. "That's what we do," Dave replied with a grin. The human repair bay became a gathering place for the galaxy's most experienced ship commanders. They came for the repairs, but they stayed for the experience. There was something infectious about The human approach to problem solving. Their willingness to experiment, to try new approaches, to see failure as just another piece of information rather than a dead-end. Captain Zara of the Exploration Service brought her damaged scout ship expecting a routine repair job. She left with a completely redesigned sensor array that could detect things no other ship in the fleet could see. The original sensors were built for general survey work, Bill explained as he showed her the modifications. But you're doing deep space exploration. I rebuilt them for maximum sensitivity and gave them better discrimination between different types of signals. This is incredible, Zara said, watching her new sensors pick up stellar phenomena that had been invisible before. Why hasn't anyone else thought of this? They probably have, Bill said. But most facilities won't make modifications that aren't in their standard procedures. Too much liability if something goes wrong. Aren't you worried about liability? Bill laughed. Our whole approach is based on things that shouldn't work but do. If we worried about liability, we'd never fix anything. The transformation of Station Alpha 7 was remarkable. What had once been a quiet outpost now buzzed with activity 24 hours a day. Ships waited in line for repair slots that were booked months in advance. The humans had to expand their facilities twice to handle the demand, but the real change was in how the galaxy viewed human capabilities. The species that everyone had dismissed as primitive and backwards was now setting the standard for innovative engineering. Ship commanders who had never given humans a second thought were now specifically requesting human facilities over their own species. Advanced repair stations. The humans themselves remained remarkably humble about their success. They continued to approach each repair job with the same curiosity and determination that had made them famous. For them, it wasn't about proving anything to the galaxy. It was simply about solving problems and making things work better. The boardroom of Mechanoid Precision Corporation was filled with tension as thick as the metallic atmosphere the robot beings breathed. Unit Prime 7, the company's chief executive, processed the quarterly reports with increasing alarm. Their profits had dropped by 40% in just 6 months. Cancellations were pouring in daily, and their most valuable clients were abandoning contracts worth billions of credits. The humans are destroying our business, announced Unit Finance 12, displaying holographic charts that showed their declining market share. Ships that used to come to our facilities are now going to primitive human repair stations instead. How is this possible? Unit Prime 7's voice carried electronic harmonics of frustration. Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs. Our repair bays are fully automated, sterile, and precise to molecular levels. We use quantum-grade materials and AI-guided procedures that eliminate all possibility of error. Unit Production 15 connected to the network and shared surveillance data they had gathered. We have observed their methods. They use crude tools, recycled materials, and manual labor. Their facilities are dirty and chaotic. By all logical measurements, their work should be inferior to ours. Yet somehow their reputation continues to grow, Unit Finance 12 replied. Admiral Rex publicly stated that his flagship runs better after human repairs than it ever did after our service. Captain Nova has switched her entire fleet to human maintenance schedules. Across the galaxy, similar meetings were taking place. In the crystal towers of Centaurian automated systems, the crystalline beings communicated through harmonic frequencies, their conversation sounding like distant music to other species. But the melody was discordant with worry, Crystal Director. Harmony Major resonated with deep concern. The disruption to our business model is unprecedented. We have perfected repair procedures over millennia. Our processes are mathematically optimal, tested across millions of operations. How can organic beings with primitive tools achieve superior results? Crystal Engineer Resonance Prime shared data through harmonic patterns. I have analyzed the human methods extensively. They violate every principle of proper engineering. They mix incompatible technologies, use materials outside their design specifications, and modify systems without proper testing protocols. Yet, their clients report improved performance metrics, Harmony Major replied. Ships repaired by humans show better efficiency ratings than those serviced by our facilities. This should not be possible. The alien repair industry had dominated galactic commerce for thousands of years. The mechanoids had built their reputation on precision and reliability. The Centaurians were known for elegant solutions and mathematical perfection. The Rigelian shipyards specialized in heavy construction and military-grade repairs. Together, they had formed an unshakable foundation of the galactic economy. Now that foundation was cracking. Unit Prime 7 made a decision that went against every protocol in the mechanoid operational manual. We will send infiltration units to observe human repair methods directly. We must understand how they achieve these results. The first mechanoid spy arrived at Station Alpha 7, disguised as a maintenance robot. The humans welcomed it cheerfully, assuming it was a standard service unit from a visiting ship. For 3 days, the spy observed human repair operations, recording everything with hidden sensors. What it saw defied logic. Humans routinely broke safety protocols, modified equipment beyond recommended parameters, and used materials in ways that violated manufacturer specifications. Yet somehow everything worked better than it should have. The spy watched Kate solve a power distribution problem by connecting systems that were never designed to work together. She used components from 4 different manufacturers, bridged incompatible connection types with handmade adapters, and created a hybrid system that performed better than any single standard approach. This should not function, the spy transmitted to its controllers. The voltage requirements are mismatched. The connection protocols are incompatible, and the control systems use different communication standards. Yet the hybrid system operates at 97% efficiency, higher than any standard configuration. When the spy tried to analyze the solution using mechanoid engineering principles, it encountered computational errors. The human approach didn't follow any recognizable pattern. It was adaptive, intuitive, and seemingly random, yet somehow consistently successful. A Centaurian observer, crystalline body carefully disguised with holographic projectors, had similar experiences. It watched Bill realign a cooling system using nothing more than visual inspection and tactile feedback. The crystalline being's advanced sensors confirmed that Bill's adjustments were mathematically perfect, yet he had achieved this precision without any measuring instruments. The human appears to possess an intuitive understanding of mechanical systems that transcends computational analysis, the observer reported. He makes adjustments based on sensory input that our most sophisticated sensors cannot detect, yet his results are consistently optimal. The most confusing aspect was how humans collaborated. At mechanoid facilities, each unit had a specific function and followed predetermined procedures. At Centaurian stations, work flowed according to harmonic patterns established over centuries. But humans seemed to operate in controlled chaos, sharing ideas spontaneously and adapting their approaches in real time. Dave was working on a weapons system calibration when Kate mentioned a power fluctuation problem she was having 3 decks away. Within minutes, they had connected the 2 issues and developed a solution that addressed both problems simultaneously. The mechanoid spy watching this interaction nearly overloaded, trying to model the decision-making process. They are not following any established workflow patterns, it reported. Communication appears random, yet they achieve coordinated results. Their problem-solving methods are unpredictable, but consistently effective. The alien repair companies began attempting to copy human methods. Mechanoid Precision Corporation installed new protocols that allowed their units to deviate from standard procedures. They gave their robots permission to experiment with unconventional solutions and modify equipment beyond normal parameters. The results were catastrophic. Without the intuitive understanding that guided human improvisation, the robots created dangerous combinations that failed spectacularly. A mechanoid unit trying to replicate Kate's hybrid power system accidentally overloaded a ship's main reactor, causing an explosion that destroyed half the repair bay. Centaurian automated systems tried a different approach. They analyzed thousands of human repair jobs, looking for patterns they could incorporate into their harmonic procedures. They created new algorithmic compositions that attempted to replicate human creativity through mathematical formulas. But creativity couldn't be reduced to equations. The Centaurian systems produced solutions that looked similar to human work, but lacked the essential adaptability that made human repairs superior. When ships modified by Centaurian attempts at human-style repairs encountered unexpected problems, the systems failed because they couldn't adapt beyond their programmed parameters. Rigellian shipyards tried to recruit human engineers, offering salaries that were astronomical by human standards. Several humans visited their facilities and were impressed by the advanced technology and generous offers. But when they tried to work within Rigellian procedures, their effectiveness disappeared. The rigid protocols and safety requirements that made Rigellian facilities so reliable also prevented the kind of creative problem-solving that made human repairs superior. "It's not about the tools or the techniques," Tom explained to a Rigellian recruiter who couldn't understand why their offer had been declined. "It's about the approach. Your systems are designed to prevent failure, which is great for routine work. But they also prevent innovation. When you can't fail, you can't learn. When you can't experiment, you can't discover better ways to do things." The alien repair industry found itself in an impossible situation. They could see that human methods worked better, but they couldn't replicate them. Their entire business model was based on predictability, precision, and following established procedures. The human approach was based on adaptability, creativity, and breaking rules when necessary. Some companies tried to partner with human repair stations, offering to share their advanced technology in exchange for learning human techniques. But the partnerships were awkward and often unsuccessful. The fundamental differences in approach made cooperation difficult. As more ships chose human repair facilities, the economic impact spread throughout the galaxy. Alien repair companies laid off workers, closed facilities, and watched their stock prices plummet. The industry that had seemed unshakable for thousands of years was being transformed by a species that had barely mastered interstellar travel. 1 year after Commander Vex first limped into Station Alpha 7, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The small human outpost that had once struggled to attract customers now had a waiting list stretching 6 months into the future. Ships from every corner of known space sat in organized rows around the station, their crews patiently waiting for their turn in the legendary human repair bays. Tom stood on the observation deck of the newly expanded Station Alpha 7, watching his team work on 3 ships simultaneously. The facility had grown from a single repair bay to a complex of interconnected modules, each one humming with activity. But despite the expansion, they had kept the same basic approach that had made them famous. "Never thought we'd see the day," said Kate, joining him with her own cup of coffee. Her work clothes were as stained as ever, but now she wore a small pin that identified her as Senior Systems Integration Specialist, a title the Galactic Engineering Council had created specifically to recognize her unique skills. "Sometimes I feel like we're living in a dream," Tom replied, watching Bill guide a team of young humans through the repair of a Centaurian luxury cruiser. "Remember when we were just trying to keep this place running on recycled parts and hope?" The transformation hadn't been just about business success. The entire galactic approach to problem-solving was shifting. Engineering schools across the galaxy were adding new courses called Adaptive Repair Techniques and Creative Engineering Solutions. The rigid by-the-book methods that had dominated for centuries were being questioned for the first time. Commander Vex had become something of a celebrity in military circles. His Starbreaker was now used as a training example in fleet academies, showing how innovative repairs could improve a ship beyond its original design. He visited Station Alpha 7 regularly, not just for maintenance but to bring other commanders who wanted to see human engineering in action. "Tom, I want you to meet Admiral Cross of the Fifth Fleet," Vex said as he approached with a distinguished alien officer whose species Tom didn't recognize. "She's considering having her entire battle group serviced here." Admiral Cross studied the busy repair bays with keen interest. "I've heard remarkable things about your methods, Chief Engineer. But I have to ask, how do you ensure quality control when your procedures are so flexible?" "That's the thing," Tom explained. "We don't control quality by controlling procedures. We control quality by understanding what we're doing and why we're doing it. When you really understand how something works, you can adapt to make it work better." "But what about standardization? How do you train new engineers if every repair is different?" Tom pointed to where a young human was working alongside Dave on a complex weapon system repair. "We teach principles, not procedures. Teach someone to understand energy flow, material stress, and system integration, and they can figure out how to fix anything. Teach them to follow a checklist, and they can only fix things that match the checklist." The success of human repair methods had created an unexpected cultural exchange. Alien engineers were coming to human stations not just for repairs, but to learn. The humans, characteristically generous with their knowledge, welcomed students from across the galaxy. A group of young mechanoid units had requested permission to observe human repair techniques. Unlike their corporate predecessors who had come as spies, these units came as genuine students, eager to understand how organic intuition could supplement their computational capabilities. The fascinating aspect is how you process and complete information. Unit Student 23 said to Kate as she diagnosed a mysterious power drain in a Regellian freighter. "You are making decisions based on data that would be insufficient for our analysis protocols." "It's not about having complete data," Kate replied, running her hand along a power conduit to feel for temperature variations. "It's about using all your senses and trusting your experience. This conduit feels warm in the wrong spot, which tells me there's resistance where there shouldn't be." The mechanoid unit extended sensors toward the conduit. "My thermal sensors detect no significant temperature variation." "That's because you're looking for big differences," Kate said. "I'm feeling for tiny ones. After 20 years of working with power systems, my hands can detect changes your sensors can't measure." Unit Student 23 processed this information with obvious difficulty. "How do you quantify intuitive knowledge for training purposes?" "You don't quantify it," Kate laughed. "You develop it through experience. Every repair teaches you something new about how systems behave. Over time you build up a feel for what's normal and what's not." The phrase "fix it like a human" had entered common usage throughout the galaxy. It meant approaching a problem with creativity instead of rigid procedures, being willing to try unconventional solutions, and treating each challenge as unique, rather than trying to force it into a standard category. Even the Galactic Engineering Council, the ancient body that had set technical standards for millennia, was adapting to the human influence. They created new certification categories for adaptive engineering and creative problem-solving. For the first time in their history, they acknowledged that sometimes the best solution was the one that broke the rules. Tom found himself traveling throughout the galaxy as a consultant, teaching alien engineers the principles behind human repair methods. The irony wasn't lost on him that humans who had been considered primitive by galactic standards We're now being asked to teach advanced civilizations how to think about engineering problems. The secret isn't really a secret at all. Tom told a conference of alien engineers on the Centaurian homeworld. It's about being willing to fail. Every great repair job starts with someone saying, "This probably won't work, but let's try it anyway." If you're not willing to fail, you'll never discover anything new. This philosophy was revolutionary to species that had spent centuries perfecting fail-safe procedures. The idea that failure could be valuable, that mistakes could lead to breakthroughs, challenged fundamental assumptions about how complex systems should be managed. Station Alpha 7 had spawned dozens of similar facilities throughout human space. Each one maintained the same basic approach: hire curious people, give them good tools, and trust them to figure out creative solutions. The results were consistently impressive, with human repair stations earning reputations for solving problems that other facilities couldn't handle, but the humans never forgot where they came from. Tom still drank coffee from the same old mug, still got his hands dirty on every major repair job, and still treated each broken ship as an interesting puzzle rather than a routine business transaction. "You know what I think made the difference?" Tom said to Kate as they watched a mechanoid engineering student successfully repair a hybrid power system using human techniques. "We never assumed we knew everything. When other species developed advanced technology, they started thinking they had figured out the best way to do things. But we knew our technology wasn't the best, so we stayed curious. Plus we were too stubborn to give up when things looked impossible," Kate added with a grin. "That too," Tom agreed. As the years passed, the galaxy became a more innovative place. Ships ran more efficiently, repairs lasted longer, and problems that had once seemed unsolvable became routine challenges. The human approach to engineering had spread far beyond repair bays, influencing everything from shipbuilding to planetary construction projects. Commander Vex, now an admiral himself, often brought new officers to Station Alpha 7 to show them what was possible when people stopped thinking about what couldn't be done and started focusing on what might work. The Starbreaker, still running perfectly after all these years, served as a testament to the power of human ingenuity. And in the repair bays of Station Alpha 7, Tom and his team continued doing what they had always done, making things work, no matter how impossible the task seemed to everyone else. They had proven that sometimes the best technology wasn't the most advanced technology, but the technology guided by wisdom, experience, and the willingness to try something new.